Good morning, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Happy 2021, as this is my first time preaching on a Sunday in 2021. And let's start off with going to the Lord in prayer. Let's talk to God. God, we give you full control over our lives. And I know we say that, but I pray that you will show us the parts of our life that we haven't given you control yet. I pray that you will speak to us by this sermon and open our eyes, our hearts, our minds, the compartments of our life to see the areas where we still haven't allowed you come and be Lord over. I pray these things in your name. Amen. I was sitting in my office. It was last week, and somebody walked in, and the first thing she asked me was, "Do you have a ministry theme for 2021? I said, "I haven't had one. I haven't picked one yet." She said, "Well, I picked a theme and you have to pick one too." I thought it was a really good idea to choose a ministry theme. I haven't done one in a long time. So I was sitting on the couch and thinking, what kind of theme should I set for 2021? And the typical verses came to mind, like seek first the kingdom of God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. And they just didn't seem right because it felt like I was trying to set a theme of something that I wanted it to be. So I sat a little while, and all of a sudden a verse came to mind. And I know this was from God because it came to my mind out of nowhere. And the verse was Psalm 46:10, which says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God. And that is the ministry theme that I set for 2021, at least for my ministry. And I encourage you to set a theme for the year for your family or for yourself. Pray the Lord to give you a theme, something that you can hinge on for the rest of the year, something that you can focus on. But I chose, at least the Lord chose for me, Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." And I know that the Lord gave me this theme because this is what most of us, including me, are struggling with this year. We have lost all sense of control over everything going on in the world. It doesn't feel like we have any more control over anything. So I needed a verse, I needed something to be etched into my head, something for my ministry to go forward with, something that was biblical, and something that made me always look towards God and rely on God. And that's why I know that God gave me this theme, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. So today, in light of everything going on in the world, as we thought situations were going to get better, but they're getting worse, we're going to look into Psalm 46. We're going to break it down, and we're going to see how we can be still and know that God is God, and we're going to see how we can get closer to Christ through Psalm 46. 2020 was a disaster. Everything was canceled. Plans were canceled. Weddings were canceled. Engagements were canceled. Even funerals were canceled. Everything was canceled. And it reminds me of James chapter 4, where James is talking about these people talk about plans, and tomorrow we're going to go here and do this, and tomorrow we're going to go there and do that. And James is like, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I think everyone got a reality check that that's exactly true. We are not in control, and we have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. Because we are but a mist, we are but a vapor. Yesterday we're here, today we're here, and tomorrow we might not be here anymore. We have no idea what's going on. Therefore we say, if the Lord wills. So we have no idea what's going on. We have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring. But we know that we need God to stable and sustain our lives. And that is why we go to Psalms like Psalm 46 for hope. One thing that really hit me hard when everything first closed back in March of 2020 was when church closed. It really hit me hard because I felt like everything that I had done in the past 2 years in church with Badaniats, it felt like everything was being undone. All the work that I had put in, it felt like was being undone now. All the effort that I had put in was being undone. And it just felt like everything was being wasted. And now this thing comes out of nowhere and it just eliminates the effort that I had put into ministry. These kids, 100 of them, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Who are they going to be fellowshipping with? I had all these questions. Another thing that bugged me was I'm a very social person and my work involves being with a lot of people. I'm like, what am I going to do for work now? Most of my work involves ministering to people, especially in person. So I had all these question marks in my mind, and they were repeating in my head, and it was bugging me a lot. And I had to remind myself that one of the first things they taught me in seminary, I had to remind myself was this: it's not my ministry, it's God's. It's not my church, it's Jesus Christ's church. Everything I do is not for me. Everything I do is for Christ. And I had to remind myself of these truths, and I had to remind myself that Jesus Christ will not let anything happen to his church that is for the harming of his church. Everything that happens to his church is for the benefit of his kingdom. So I had to remind myself that I'm not in charge. I'm just a humble servant, that Jesus is in charge, and if he's letting this happen, then I need to adjust my ministry methods and start ministering in new ways to the kids. So I started doing drive-by, not drive-bys. Well, I started doing drive-by fellowship, drive-by hangouts. Kids will come out and I'll just hang out with them. I started getting creative because I had to. I had lost all control, but with the help of God and everything, I started getting back on my feet, and now we meet again. Thank God. But let's go back to Psalm 46 and this idea of control, because in reality, none of us have control over our lives. We didn't have control before pandemic. We don't have control during pandemic. We're not going to have control post-pandemic. In reality, a lot of the big things in our life are decided for us. So it's best to be in the hands of Christ, who is the controller, who is the ultimate control of everything. When we look at Psalm 46, we see this idea of control here in verse 10. But before we get there, we're going to look at Psalm 46 verse by verse. Psalm 46 is a psalm, but it's also a song. As we see in the title, it says a song. And we know the lyrics of the song are in Psalm 46. I wish we needed a tune. I guess you can put whatever tune you want to Psalm 46. You can be creative. But let's look at the lyrics of Psalm 46 and let's see what it says. And this is one of my favorite psalms. Psalm 46, and it says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter, he utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress. Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolation on the earth. He makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear and burns the chariots with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Psalm 46. I encourage everyone to memorize it. I've memorized this over the years, and I encourage everyone to do it. It's a great thing. It's a great psalm to go to in tough times as a reminder that Christ is always with us. Psalm 46, very simply, 3 sections, and we're going to break down the 3 sections verse by verse. And immediately we see that in the opening verse, it's a strong opening, and it says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. So we see God is classified as a refuge, which is a place of safety, a strength, and a help, a very present help in trouble. And when is God these things? It says present, which means right now. He is here right now. A lot of times we think of God as this far-off help who will reveal himself in his timing, and right now he's just kind of making us wait, and these things, they're true, but at the same time we forget that God is also here right now. He is present right now. He is present Sunday morning as you're watching this sermon. He is present Friday morning as I'm recording this sermon. He is present anytime I need him. He is with me. We forget that God is sustaining us every single minute, every single hour of the day. And just because he hasn't majorly revealed himself to us in some big way doesn't mean he's not with us. God is actually with us, sustaining us until he decides it's time for him to reveal himself in a big way. God is always with us. I wish we had the spiritual eyes to see how God is always with us every single step of the way. We'd be amazed at how much work God is doing in our lives. But we always want God to show up in a big way, when in reality he's showing up every single second and he's really sustaining us. He's a very present help in trouble. Therefore, which means because God is our refuge and strength and help, therefore we're not going to fear. Even though the earth gives way, the mountains be moved into the sea, the waters roar and foam, the mountains tremble. These are extreme events. Therefore, we will not fear when extreme events happen. And back then, even more back then, but now too, one of the first things they thought of God was creator. A lot of times when we think about God now, we kind of go into his other qualities, but one of the major things they thought of God was that he created the heavens and the earth. That was one of the biggest qualities of God. So here we have in this psalm something that shows that, oh look, if God is creator, then how is his creation being undone? If extreme events like this are happening, maybe God's not in charge. That's exactly what the psalmist is trying to say. That no, even though it seems like God's creation is being undone and major events are happening, we will not fear because God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. We have major events going on in the world right now. Coronavirus. We have other things, world hunger. We have cancer and things like that in the world. And we look at these major events and we're like, God, your creation is being undone. And we feel like God is not in control anymore, but he is. And we will not fear because God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Fear is an emotional thing. Fear is an instinctual thing that we're created with. But Christianity is not an emotional thing. It's a decision. It's a relationship to know, to spend time with God, for him to sustain you when you're going through these things. For you to know, not emotionally, but mentally and also in your heart knowledge that God is our refuge and strength. As Luther said in his famous song, a mighty fortress is our God. I'm an Armenian. Asvazmer Pertne Hastadun. He is a mighty fortress, even though it seems like his creation is being undone, he is still in full control. And then we end with the first section, which says Selah, which just means a pause in a Hebrew song or poetry. And then we get to section 2, which says, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. What a different picture. Section 1, these waters are roaring and foaming. Picture 2, there's a river who has streams, which is calm. Picture 1, the streams are scaring even the mountains. It says the mountains tremble. And then picture 2, it says the rivers make glad the city of God. Why? Because it's the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. Where the presence of God is peace and calm and gladness. That's the difference. A lot of people say, let's go to the temple. This was in the Old Testament, Jeremiah, Isaiah, we see examples. Let's go to the temple. Let's go to the temple. And what happened to be is they started doing temple worship instead of God worship. The reason why the holy habitation of the Most High in Psalm 46, which is Jerusalem, which is Zion, which is the temple, by the way. So that verse is talking about God is in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. It's talking about the temple. The reason why the temple shall not be moved is not because it's a holy building. It's a holy building because God's presence is in it. It wasn't the temple that was a big deal. It was the fact that God's presence was a big deal. And God did everything to preserve his temple in the Old Testament. He did everything to fight for his temple. Why? Because his presence was in it. Fast forward to the New Testament. Who is the temple of God? And we know the verse. It's on our wall in church, in the sanctuary. And we know growing up, it says that the believer is the temple. Why? Because we have the Holy Spirit of God living in us. We are the temple of God. Just as God did everything to preserve his temple in the Old Testament, he will do everything to preserve us because we are his temple. Not because we are, I don't want to say that, but I want to say he's going to do this because he loves us, and more importantly, his Spirit is living in us because he loves us. And he will do everything to protect somewhere where his Spirit is living in. Are you afraid? God's Spirit is living in you, and God will do anything. He will go to any cost to protect you from being destroyed. God will help you when morning dawns, because he is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And even though the earth will give away and all these extreme things will happen, God is in the midst of us and we shall not be moved. God will help us when morning dawns. And then we get to verse 6, which says, the nations rage, the kingdoms totter. Very simply, this is an international event. This is a big thing going on in Psalm 46. We think of, like I said earlier, we think of locally. We think of just Israel, but in reality, the problems that the psalmist is talking about is at international level. We have an international crisis right now. Coronavirus, it's going on. Pandemic. It's funny because I don't know if it's other people, but I always fall into the trap of this. God is in control when it's a small event, so we see God's hand in small events, but when it's a global event, we kind of feel like, God, where are you? Where are you? Are you in control? And in reality, if we're going to break it down to the most basic level, we sometimes feel like global crises are bigger than God. We feel like pandemic is bigger than God. I've always fallen to the trap to think that maybe cancer is bigger than God. Why is God not stopping it? Is cancer stronger than God? But the psalmist speaks directly to that. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. God is greater than anything that is going on locally or globally. I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't understand why he operates the way he does. But you know what? Because God is all-powerful and all-wise and all-loving, I can trust that he knows what he's doing better than I know what he's doing. And I can fully submit to him because I trust him. You know, when you love somebody and you trust somebody, you don't have a hard time doing what they ask you to do. Kind of the same thing with God. Because we know he's eternally loving and wise, and we can trust that he knows how to handle the situation. And he utters his voice, the earth melts. The voice of God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. God speaks, which is Christ, the Word of God. Christ is the manifestation of the logic of God, the mind of God. And the earth melts. Christ is the ultimate King. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. The Lord of hosts just means, we read it all the time, it just means very simply, host means the host of the angel of the armies of the angels. It's the angels in the sky, And the Lord is the Lord of the armies of the angels of the sky. That's the Lord who's with us. Not only do we have our church with us, not only do we have our family, not only do we have God, but we have hundreds of millions of angels backing us up. That's who is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And then we get a second Selah, and that's the end of the second section. I was listening to Chuck Swindoll one time, and he said this. He said, when you get to Selah, I know it means pause, but he said this, and I loved it. He was like, for you, let it mean pause and let that sink in. Pause and let that sink in. And I thought that was really cool, because pause and let that sink in, that God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Though the world becomes undone, we won't fear, because he is these things. And God is in the midst of us, we shall not be moved. Pause and let that sink in for a little bit. Just like when you eat, you get a good meal and you sit and you don't move from the table because you're allowing it to sink into your body, and you're still enjoying it even after you've eaten it, you've ate it. Pause and let these words sink in. And then we get to the third section and the final section. It says, come behold the works of the Lord. Very simply, it's an invitation. The psalmist is giving us an invitation to see what the Lord has done. And I know this verse has kind of come behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolation on the earth. He makes war cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear and burns chariots with fire. A lot of times, I've done this too. I'm in the same trap. I read these words in a romantic way. I'm like, wow, God is such a hero. But in reality, we forget that Israel has visible and physical evidence of this. And biblical historians say that Psalm 46 was most likely written when Israel was surrounded by the kingdom of Assyria, and Assyria was going to overtake Israel, and Israel was doomed. They were finished. But the angel of the Lord in one night went out and slaughtered 185,000 Assyrians and gave Israel the victory. And that is when they say Psalm 46 was written. They have visible and physical evidence of the Lord doing these things. Come behold the works of the Lord, how he rescues a nation in one night that's about to be destroyed. They know it. And it kind of takes us away from the romanticized view of this, and it gives us real evidence. Think of the times in your life where you saw the work of the Lord. I have many of those, and you know what? I have to start writing them down. I really have to start writing them down. My cousin was telling me, George Mueller has a book of 50,000 miracles that he's seen in his lifetime, answered prayers, 50,000. The first thing I reacted when I heard that was I got convicted. I was like, wow, I'm nothing compared to this guy. Like, in Armenian, they say, like, 50,000. But you know what? He wrote it down, and that's very encouraging. And pretty much, he should have titled his book, Come Behold the Works of the Lord. He was a very humble servant. He's one of my he's one of my Christian heroes. Let's start writing these things down so that people could see the works of the Lord, so that we can tell people the works of the Lord. And then we get to the verse of today, which is verse 10, which says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. It's funny because we see the author put his pen down here. He's no longer writing. We see the hero, which is God, break the silence, break into the scene, and now he starts speaking, which is the only time that God speaks in the verse. It's 11 verses, 10 of them the author is writing, but verse 10, God breaks into the silence and he says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The hero has something to say, and we want to hear it. Because that's exactly what we're struggling with, control. The word be still here, in English, it sounds like It's something that's be quiet before the Lord. Be calm before the Lord. Listen to the still sound of the Lord. But the word in Hebrew does not mean that at all. The word in Hebrew, rapha, be still, is more of a military term, or a term that you would say when two people were fighting, which means stop what you are doing. Stop what you are doing. Let up. Or pretty much, stop trying to be in control. That's exactly what be still means. It means stop what you are doing. Stand down in military terms. The image we have here is something of you're driving and then you have control of the steering wheel and then you let go of the steering wheel because the person says, stop, let me control the steering wheel. Be still. Stop trying to control. Let God control the steering wheel. Another image that I have, which is something I was trying to come up with illustrations, and this is what came to mind. A while ago, not that long ago, but a while ago, somebody was trying to show me something on his phone. It was an older man, and he had a new phone, and he was trying to show me pictures on his phone, and he said, I'm going to show you a picture on my phone. I said, great. And for some reason, he couldn't find where his pictures were. And he was pressing everything on his phone, and it got to a point where he started getting frustrated. He started pressing it harder. He started frantically pressing things on his phone, and I was like, should I help you find it? Because I knew exactly where the icon was. All I had to do was just press it. And he said, no, I don't want you to help me. And he got even more panicked. He got even more frantic. He started getting more frustrated. And I kid you not, after 3 or 4 minutes, he gave up and he put his phone in his pocket. All he had to do was just give me the phone and I could press it in one button and I could go to his pictures. But he didn't want to give up control. He wanted to do it his way, but he was getting frustrated because he didn't know how to do it. And the more he tried to do it, the more frustrated he was getting. And at the time, it was funny when it was happening because I knew exactly how to do it. But I'm pretty sure the Lord let me go through that so I can give that illustration here. That's exactly the picture. We're trying to do everything ourselves. We're trying to do everything ourselves. But the thing is, we don't know how to do it. And God is right there saying, hand it over to me. I can do it for you. It's right here. I can just show you right here. Let me do it. And the more we do it, the more frustrated we get because we don't know how to do it. We're lost and we're panicking, but God is right there. The picture that I have is Exodus. Israel leaves the nation of Egypt. They're at the mouth of the Red Sea. They look back, the Egyptian army is coming to devour them. Pharaoh's coming with his chariots. They're about to be devoured. They look to the front, it's the Red Sea. They look to the back, it's Egypt coming to kill them. They're stuck. They're panicking. They don't know what to do. The word frantic is probably the best word to use here. They're looking back and forth. Front, the Red Sea. Back, the Egyptian army coming to kill them. What do? They turn to Moses and they start getting frustrated with him. And they say, is this why you brought us out of Egypt? Because there weren't enough graves over there? They start speaking crazy because they're panicking and they've lost all sense of control because they go front, they're dying. They go back, they're dying. They don't know what to do because there's death coming all around them. And Moses answers them in their panic. They have no control. And this is what Moses answers them, which is almost in line with Psalm 46. And this is what he says, Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand by, which means stop what are you doing, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord you will bring today. You will see the deliverance the Lord will bring today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. All they had to do was just be still and watch the wonder of the Lord come and split the Red Sea. Bring out a way that they thought they did not have, but the Lord brought out a way because He is the Lord, and He's the Lord over all creation. He can split the sea whenever He wants. This is the theme of my ministry. We have no sense of control, but we worship a God who is in full control of everything. Even when the world seems like it's being undone, God is in control. That is the God that we worship. He is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. And one of the biggest things that I learned this year is that when it feels like I'm losing control, I try doing more things to save it. But in reality, the more I lose control, the better I am with God. The more I lose control, the more I'm getting in the right path. Only when I allow God to take control. The more I give God the steering wheel, the more I give God my phone to Him to show it, the more I give God a way solution, pretty much the more I control, the more I lose control. The more I give God control, the more I'm in the right path. That's the lesson I had to learn. To be still, to let up and know that God is God. It's a trust issue. It's a relationship issue. It's a control issue. And the way you do it is by cultivating a deep relationship with Christ. The way you do it is by cultivating deep trust with Christ. It's by asking yourself, what would Jesus do in this situation, instead of saying, what would Vache do in this situation? Instead of saying, how is Vache going to panic here? It's saying, what's the solution that Christ gives through His Word in this situation? That's how you give God control, by going to His Word, by doing the three-legged stool, which is prayer, fellowship with Christ and other believers, and reading the Bible. You take one of those the legs of the stool out, the stool falls. It has to do with being decisive. Christianity is not an emotional thing. It's a decision that you make once you've been saved. You decide to keep following Christ in the hardest of times, to make hard decisions. And memorize the psalm and insert your name in the psalm. God is Vache's refuge and strength. Personalize it. A very present help in trouble. Therefore, Vache is not going to fear, even though my first reaction is to fear when the world is undone. Therefore, Vache is not going to fear because God is my refuge and strength. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in me. God is in me. I shall not be moved. God is going to help me when the morning dawns. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter, politics happens, world leaders say whatever they want to say. But you know what? He utters His voice, God utters His voice, and all these people melt. The Lord of hosts, the Lord who is God, hundreds of millions of angels are backing me up. The God of Jacob is my fortress. Come behold the works of the Lord. I need to behold them, and I also need to show you what God has done through my life. Come behold the works of the Lord. How the Lord has brought desolation, how He has done these things through my life, and He's about to do things through my life because I'm giving Him control. And the more I give God control, the more I'm going to see Him working through my life in ways I could have never imagined. He split the Red Sea when the nation of Israel was just quiet and allowed God to do His thing. Be quiet before the Lord, be still, and know that He is God. Still yourself. Let Him split the Red Sea. All you need to do is just watch and enjoy His presence. Be still and know that He is God. Know that God is God. He will be exalted. He is exalted. He was exalted. And He will be exalted, was and is on earth. The Lord of hosts is with me all the time. And I need to remind myself this: the God of Jacob is my fortress. I'm not my fortress. God of Jacob is my fortress. Let me pray. God, these lyrics are amazing, and I just pray that you will etch them in my mind, in our minds. Show me the areas of my life where I need to give up full control. I pray that you will come overtake every single compartment of my life. I want you to be Lord over my whole life, not just part of it. And Lord, do miracles through my life. Let my life be a living testimony of how wonderful you are. I just want you to be glorified, not me. Not my ministry or me, but just you, Lord. You be glorified. I pray these things in your name. Amen.